Hello, it is February 3rd, 2022. This is As the World Burns. I'm your host, Randall Burns. Today's topic is The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham. Now, Ben Graham was one of the more influential people of the 20th century, and he was influential in kind of a subtle way. He, more than any other person, took the field of investing from a field rife with superstition and rigid tradition into something systematic and moved it towards becoming something of a science. Now, you may not have heard of him before this video. You probably have heard of one of his leading protege, Warren Buffett. But it wasn't just Buffett. Ben Graham mentored a substantial number of investors of that generation, many of whom went on to influence the investing world in very significant ways. Warren Buffett called Ben Graham in the book, in his introduction to the book, the version of the book that I read, called him the man that influenced me more than anyone else besides my father. And I think that was very heartfelt. And what I've just noticed, just watching the community that gathered around Ben Graham, they had a lot of mutual feeling for the man. He inspired some very warm feelings in many of them. Now, much of the book is devoted to his understanding of how to value a stock from reading the financial statements and public documents. This practice is now known as value investing. Implicit in the book is identification of what Buffett calls the areas of competency. And that is, the practice that he encourages people to invest in things that they really can understand better than the typical investor out there, or hopefully better than any other investor out there. And a lot of the book is about separating oneself from groupthink, crowd hysteria, and active manipulation present in the markets. Now, I did an entire video titled Escaping from Manipulation, which I will link to in the description, that goes into some of that in more detail and provide some background that you can use, some background in modern literature that you can use to kind of go back to what Graham talks about. One thing that impressed me about The Intelligent Investor is his rhetoric actually sounds a bit like what you get in spiritual teachers like GI Gurdjieff when he talks about the process of individuation. And he is encouraging you to think for yourself, to not just be part of the herd when you can. And this may not be in all areas. I mean, one of the things that Warren Buffett, by the way, reiterates many times, most people are better off investing in the S&P 500 than trying to do any of the things that he does. That it's not, he follows a strategy that is not for the masses. And that is actually then, goes back to GI Gurdjieff, who didn't think that the quest for enlightenment was something that all but a few people could ever aspire to. I would not read this book in a quest to get formulas for investing. When you look at the process of iteration in the book was revised many times as Ben Graham found that old rules didn't work and he had to find new rules to teach as examples. It was kind of a constant arms race between him and the mass market that just never ended. But he always found something new, through as long as he lived. The book. The book has been so influential that the bargains are largely gone. Now, a contemporary economist that goes into some of the phenomenon here, by the way, is Andrew Lo at MIT. And another one, and all Andrew Lo's work speaks for itself, or maybe I'll cover it in a future video. But he, like Graham, was not a blind follower of the efficient market hypothesis in its more rigid forms. Now, you also may understand Graham's work a bit better if you look at the work of Frank Knight from the University of Chicago, who was a contemporary of Graham's during their lives largely overlapped, and their active lives overlapped quite a bit. And Frank Knight described the conditions under which markets tend to approach efficiency. And what becomes pretty obvious when you read that is that there are a lot of exceptions to the rules that Frank Knight outlines. Like, for example, Frank Knight outlined that you have to have 20 or more active participants for a market to approach efficiency. And there's a lot of exceptions to that market in areas like real estate, options, and prediction markets, for example, where the markets are just thin enough that that doesn't really apply. One of my favorite lines in the book was that what you aspire to is to be able to look someone in the eye and say, I don't know what's going to happen and I don't really care. What's implied within that is that you're set either way to handle all likely or conceivable eventualities, so that you are not trying to guess markets. You are simply preparing for the range of eventualities that may happen. I mean, the book, I got a good feeling about the book when I read it. I felt more assured going into the markets again. I personally, I felt like I benefited from the understanding of diversification. Now, I have my own video on diversification, which I updated a little bit, but the basic principles are the same. And it's a good read, and it's also one that gives you a window into understanding the history of the last few years, and then the context into which things like the efficient market hypothesis debate came into. And what's worth noting is that Graham's proteges included some of the outstanding investors of the 50s. Warren Buffett is not alone. By any means. There was a community that gathered around Ben Graham and his work. And it's been influential in understanding the way that business is conducted in the United States today and how we've gotten to where we are. And I would read the book in that context. This is Randall Burns signing off. I'll be back again soon with more videos, and we will continue our quest here. Thank you very much for joining me. You take care.